Hello guys, welcome to Study for Civil Services. In this video, we will see Ncert Class 7 Geography Chapter 4. We have already covered Ncert Class 6 Geography, all that chapters and the first three chapters of Class 7 Geography. And in this video series, we are going to cover in the coming videos all the Ncert books of Geography, History, Polity from Class 6 to Class 12 for all the competitive exams and basically for all the civil services exams for UPSC, IS, PCS, state PCS exams. And we will also solve the exercises given at the end of the each of the NCERT chapters. Okay, so now let's start class 7 geography chapter 4. In this chapter we will see about the air, the atmosphere, the various types of gases. See, our earth is surrounded by a huge blanket of air, and that is known as atmosphere. And all the living beings on this earth depend on the atmosphere for their survival, because the air which we breathe and which protects us from the harmful effects of the sun rays, because the atmosphere has various types of gases like ozone, and ozone rays actually filter the sun rays, and that is why harmful gases and harmful ultraviolet rays would not reach to the surface, and it would protect our skin and also protect us from cancer and other diseases. If this atmosphere will not be there, then we can be baked alive by the heat of the sun during the day, and we can also get frozen during the night, because then atmosphere would not be there, and then ozone will not be there, then carbon dioxide would not be there. So there is a very important process known as greenhouse. See, carbon dioxide is very important in atmosphere because it creates a greenhouse effect, because it traps the heat radiated from the earth, and that is why it is known as greenhouse gas. You can see the example of greenhouse for the agriculture purpose also, because in some of the countries they actually grow the crop under the cover of some some enclosure, some enclave, uh, where the sun rays actually enters into the that greenhouse pot but cannot exit from that pot, so thereby creating the warmth effect and thereby increasing the temperature of that local area, and it would help actually in the agriculture process. But the problem arises when the amount of this CO2 keeps increasing because of the uh, continuous release of CO2 through industries, through vehicles, through factories, the smokes or car fumes, and that is why the heat retained increases the temperature of the earth, and which is known as global warming. You might have heard about this term, global warming and climate change. See, there are various disastrous effect of global warming, like glaciers are melting, sea level is rising, and thereby also causing floods in various coastal areas, including various areas of India also. And the recent Chennai floods may also be occurred because of the climate change. Now, if you see the composition of the atmosphere, there are two major gases. First one is the nitrogen with 78%, then oxygen with 21%, and the third number of largest gas in the atmosphere is argon. Please remember this, because this is a very important fact for competitive exam. Everybody know that the two major gases are nitrogen and oxygen, but they will ask you the third major constituent of air, and that would be argon. And then there are various other gases like carbon dioxide and tiny dust particles are also present in the air. You can see this pie chart. Now, nitrogen is the most plentiful gas in the air, And whenever we inhale the air, we could take some amount of nitrogen into our lungs and then exhale it. But so we, as a human being and plant, both need nitrogen. Okay, but plant need nitrogen for their survival because nitrogen helps in the food formation process. But they cannot take nitrogen directly from the air. So that is why they have the bacteria that live in the soil and root of the plants, and that take nitrogen from the air and changes forms so that plants can use it. Okay. Then second is the oxygen, and it is second most plentiful gas in the air. Humans and animals take oxygen from the air as they breathe. Then green plants produce oxygen during the photosynthesis, and in this way oxygen content in the air remains constant. We intake oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. Then carbon dioxide is being used by the plants in their food production. So in this way, a equilibrium in the environment is maintained. But this equilibrium will be disturbed if we get, if we go for the deforestation process and if we keep cutting the trees. And carbon dioxide is very important gas because green plants can use carbon dioxide to make their food, and then in the process they release oxygen. Now, amount of carbon dioxide released by humans or animals seems to be equal to the amount used by the plants, which makes a perfect balance. And this balance is, being upset by various processes, various industries, burning of fuels such as coal and oil. They add actually billions of tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere each year, and which results in the increased volume of carbon dioxide and which affects Earth's weather and climate both. This is the fact. Okay. Now we will discuss the air circulation process. See, whenever air is heated, it it starts expanding and it becomes lighter, and therefore it rises. It starts moving upwards. But then the surrounding air is cold and denser, and that is why it tends to sink down. So whenever hot air rises, cold air from the surrounding area rushes there to fill in the gap, and that is how the air circulation process starts. Now we'll see structure of the atmosphere. See, our atmosphere has five layers. If you start from the surface of the earth, the first layer is troposphere, then stratosphere, then mesosphere, then thermosphere, then exosphere. You can see in this diagram from the troposphere, in which we our continents, all the weather formations, all the mountains, all are present in the troposphere. And troposphere is the most important part of the atmosphere because all the weather phenomena takes place in only in the troposphere. Then there is a layer between the troposphere and the stratosphere, and that is known as tropopause. And the aeroplane and all the other flight fighter jets and all those, they flight in the aeroplane because they flight in the stratosphere because the stratosphere don't have the clouds, and that is why there will not be any friction on or any restriction in the path of the aeroplane or aircrafts. And a stratosphere also have the ozone layer, which which block the UV rays from the sun rays. And then third layer is the mesosphere. Whenever any meteorite tries to fall into the earth atmosphere, then the meteorite will get burned into the mesosphere, and that is why we see sometimes a white glow line in the sky. And then the layer between the mesosphere and thermosphere is known as mesopause. Then there is a fourth layer is thermosphere. It also consists of ionosphere, and ionosphere is very important for the radio communications. And fifth one is the outermost layer, and that is known as exosphere. These all are the things written here. You can see this once again. Troposphere is very important layer, and its average height is, see, its average height actually you know is more at the equator and less at the poles. We'll see in the coming videos that what is the reason behind it. So the troposphere average height is around 18 kilometer at the equator and around 8 kilometer at the poles. And the air, whatever we breathe, exists here. And I have already told you that all the weather phenomena like rainfall, fog, hailstorm occurs in this air. Then second layer is stratosphere. It lies above the troposphere and it lies extend up to the height of 50 kilometer. And this layer is almost clear from the clouds. See, sometimes some types of clouds are also found in the stratosphere, but we will stick to the scope of this chapter only. So this stratosphere layer is you can assume almost free from the clouds and associated weather phenomena, and that is why they make the conditions most ideal for flying aeroplanes, aircrafts. And other important feature of stratosphere is it contains ozone layer. And the third one I told you that it is the mesosphere. It extends up to the height of 80 kilometer and meteorites actually burn up in this layer on entering from the space whenever they try to enter into the earth atmosphere. Then fourth layer is the thermosphere. And see, one more property is there, that as you go from the earth's surface to the tropopause or the uh, up to the atmosphere, then in the troposphere the temperature will keep on decreasing, and then from the tropopause up to the stratopause the temperature will increase from tropopause to stratopause, and then from stratopause to mesopause the temperature again goes on decreasing from stratopause to mesopause. Then again the from the mesopause to thermopause temperature will be increased. Okay, we will see the reasons and other factors and other phenomena in the coming videos. And ionosphere is a part of thermosphere. I already told you it exists between 80 to 400 kilometer, and this layer helps in radio transmission. And uppermost is the exosphere, and this layer has very thin air, and some light gases like helium and hydrogen float into the space from air. See, we have already covered this weather and climate difference. Weather is actually the how hour to hour, day to day condition or changes of the atmosphere. For example, a hot or humid weather or a pleasant or breezy weather. So weather is the day to day changes or hour to hour changes uh, in the atmosphere. But the climate is the average weather condition of a place for a longer period of time. So that is why uh, we have a daily weather forecast, but the climate of a region is some definite type. Like the climate of India is monsoon climate, but we can see that daily weather report in all the TV news channels. Now please remember this fact that the Earth receives only one part of the 2 billion parts of the sun's energy. Now, if you see the definition of temperature, temperature is actually the degree of hotness or coldness of air, and the temperature of atmosphere changes not only between day and night, but also from season to season. And summers are hotter than winter. This is by a very common sense. Now, another factor that influences the distribution of temperature is insolation. Insolation is actually the incoming solar energy is intercepted by the Earth, and the amount of insolation decreases from us towards pole because the sunlight will fall directly on the equator, but as soon as it moves from equator up to the poles, the rays will be slanted and inclined, and that is why the amount of energy, the amount of solar rays, the falls on the poles are very less, and that is why poles are frozen areas and the temperature is very less in the poles. So that is why this is the reason that poles are covered with the snow. And there is another factor that temperature in the cities is much higher than that of villages because of the concretes and metals in the buildings and the asphalt of the roads. They get actually heated up during the day, and this heat is released during the night. See this, there is another definition for this, and that is known as albedo effect. Albedo is the actually the amount of the energy reflected. So albedo of the concrete is very less, and that is why the more of the sun rays will be absorbed by this, and that is why these cities are known as urban heatland. We'll see all this in the coming videos. Now there are these four weather instrument. Thermometer, it actually measures the temperature. Barometer measure the atmospheric pressure. Then rain gauge actually measures the amount of rainfall. Then wind vane shows the direction of the wind. Now the standard unit of measuring temperature is degree Celsius. Everybody know this. And the another definition is air pressure. See, air pressure is defined as the pressure exerted by the weight of the air on the Earth's surface. And as we go up the layers of atmosphere, the pressure falls rapidly, and the air pressure is the highest at the sea level and decreases with the height. And that is why the reason that the whenever the astronauts go to any other planet or moon or see this is the another reason whenever the mountain hikers actually they do the trekking on the mountains, they actually have the oxygen cylinder with them because on the heights you know the oxygen would be less, the volume will be less, and now we can see the another fact that on the moon there is no air and no air pressure, and that is why astronauts have to wear special protective space suits filled with the air whenever they will go to the moon, because if they did not wear these special space suits, the counter pressure exerted by the astronauts would make the blood vessels burst and astronauts would start bleeding. See, whatever the air pressure, the air presses our body, the our body also will exert the equivalent, a counter pressure on the earth, on the air. So we can say that the air presses us from all the directions, and our body also exert a counter pressure. And as we go up the layers of the atmosphere, the pressure fall rapidly, and the air pressure is highest at the sea level and decreases with the height. And if you see horizontally, the distribution of air pressure is influenced by the temperature of the air at a given place. And in areas the temperature is high, see when the temperature and pressure have inverse relation. If the temperature would be high, the air would get heated and rises, and that is why it creates a low pressure area. So high temperature means low pressure area, and low pressure area is actually associated with the cloudy skies and the wet weather. But if the temperature is lower and the areas having the lower temperature, the air would be cold and therefore it would be heavy. So low temperature means high pressure, high temperature means low pressure. Okay. And in the areas of low temperature and high pressure, the heavy air sinks and creates a very high pressure area. And that area is associated with clear and sunny skies. Now the air always moves from high pressure area to low pressure area. This is the fact, and that is why uh, the wind formation takes place. And wind is named after the direction from which it blows. For example, if the wind blowing from the west, it is known as westerly. The movement of air from high pressure area to low pressure area is known as wind. And you can see wind at work as it blows during the dry leaves down the pavements or uproots trees during a storm. Now we can see other things. There are three type of winds. Broadly, if you divide the wind of the whole globe, there are three major types. First one is the permanent wind. They are also known as, they are of three types. The first one is trade winds, then westerlies, then easterlies. If you see this figure, you can see that northeast trade winds and then southeast trade winds, they both merges at the equatorial low pressure area, that is the doldrum. Then prevailing westerlies on the north and the south, then polar easterlies on the north and the south. So all these are the permanent winds and they actually blow constantly throughout the year in the particular direction. The direction won't change. Then second type of winds are known as seasonal winds. These winds actually change the direction in the different directions. For example, monsoons in India. See, monsoons in India comes from the southwesterly winds, and they will come only in the months of June up to September. So whenever their season will come, they will come. That type is known as local winds. They blow actually only during a particular period of a day or year in a small area. For example, land and sea breeze, and also the Lu, and Lu is the hot and dry local wind of northern plains of India. Cyclone we will discuss. It is a natural disaster, and this is the given that on the October 1999, a major cyclone hits the Odisha coast and caused various and widespread destruction. And we'll see all these. Cyclone comes with heavy rainfall, low pressure area. Cyclone is associated with low pressure area, sea surface temperature increase, and also cyclonic wind caused tidal waves inland and brought massive destruction to the coastal areas. We'll see all these in the coming chapters, coming videos. Okay. Now, if you see the moisture, there are three processes of the rainfall. Okay, first one is the cyclonic, when the cold air front and the warm air front meets the cyclonic rainfall. And cyclonic are of two types, temperate and the tropical. Then second one is the orographic, whenever the clouds with moisture they tries to go to reach up to the mountain, they will result in the precipitation. And third type is known as convectional rainfall. That is whenever there is a area which is having high temperature, then air starts rising, and that is why, because of the convection process, the warm air will rise and it will reaches up to the ex- uh, extent where the cloud cannot hold the water, and therefore they will result in the precipitation. So there are three type of rainfall processes: cyclonic, orographic, and the convectional. These all things are written here. See, moisture. What is the moisture? Moisture is actually whenever water evaporates from the land and different water bodies, it becomes water vapor. And moisture in the air at any time is known as humidity. Humidity is the amount of water vapor in the air. And whenever the air is full of water vapor, we call it a humid day. And that is why, as the air gets warmer, its capacity to hold the water vapor increases, because the saturation state will be reached, and so it becomes more and more humid. And that is why on a humid day, clothes takes longer to dry, and sweat from our body does not evaporate easily, because already so much water vapor is present in the atmosphere, and that is why it makes us feel very uncomfortable. Now when the water vapor rises, it starts cooling, and the water vapor condenses, causing the formation of droplets of water. Clouds are actually the masses of such droplets, And when these droplets of air water becomes too heavy to float in the air, then they come down as the precipitation. And precipitation can be of any form of water, of ice, and you might have seen that whenever the jet planes flying in the sky, they leave a white trail behind them. The reason is that the moisture from this engine condenses, and we see actually the trails of this condensed moisture for sometimes whenever there is no air movement to disturb it. Now, the precipitation that comes down to the earth in the liquid is known as rain, and most of the groundwater comes from the rainwater. And plants help actually preserving the water. And whenever the trees on the hillsides are cut, the rainwater flows down the bare mountain and can cause flooding of the low lying areas. So there is the you know that is why we need to focus on the afforestation in the mountainous areas to prevent the soil erosion from the mountainous areas and to also prevent the flooding on the nearby areas. And I've already told you that there are three type of rainfall: convectional, orographic, and cyclonic. And rainfall is very important. And other form of precipitation are also known as snow, sleet, and hail. We will see in the coming videos. I will solve the exercise. What is atmosphere? It is actually the gaseous layer surrounding the Earth's surface. Which two gases make the bulk? Oxygen, nitrogen. Which gas creates greenhouse effects? Carbon dioxide. Weather is the day-to-day, hour-to-hour changes. Three type of rainfall: convectional, uh, cyclonic, orographic. Air pressure is the actually the pressure of the, see this is written here, defined as the pressure exerted by the weight of the air on the Earth's surface. Then the objective type question: which of the following gases protect us from harmful sun rays? Obviously ozone. Then most important layer of the atmosphere is troposphere. Then which of the following layers of the atmosphere is free from the clouds? Actually this the answer would be mesosphere, but as per this chapter the answer would be stratosphere, because actually stratosphere also have some type of clouds. If you go for higher studies in geography, and if you have geography as an optional, and in the other higher classes it is already written that the upper part of the stratosphere have some form of clouds. So the actual answer of this third question would be mesosphere, but as per this chapter the answer would be stratosphere. Now fourth one is that as we go up the layers of the atmosphere, the pressure will be decreases. Then when precipitation comes down to the earth in the liquid form, it is known as rain. Then match of the followings: trade winds are the permanent winds, Lu are the local winds, monsoon are the seasonal winds, wind are the horizontal movement of the air. Now reasons wet clothes takes longer time to dry on humid day, because the on humid day air is already having uh, you know air is already reaching up to the saturation state and it is full with water vapors. So that is why cloths water cannot evaporate, and that is why it takes longer time. Amount of insolation decreases from equator towards pole, because the on the equator the earth the sun rays falls directly on the equator, but the sun rays will be slanting or the inclined at the poles, and that is why the amount of insolation decreases from the equator towards the poles. So please subscribe our channel for more NCERT videos and for more GS, GK and current affairs for all the competitive exams. Thank you.